And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, it's our friend Jen Taub joining us, law professor at Western New England University School of Law, author of the book Big Dirty Money. Also, she has a podcast, Booked Up with Jen Taub, and the newsletter we covered last time with you, Eugene Carroll, and Mary Trump. How's that going? The Tuscany, it's called what's it called, the actual name?
Well, the platform on Substack is called Backstory Serial.
Backstory, right.
But the first novel, the one being written by Mary, is called The Italian Lesson. And it's kind of like a dark romance novel set in Tuscany.
Interesting. Mary was on to talk about it. Well, people are going to need things to do because the writers are on strike and now the actors are going out. Just learned that. So there's going to be no more Hollywood, folks. Shut down. You're going to, if you want entertainment, it's the Dean Obeidallah Show, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's all you're going to have.
Hold the phone. Are we allowed to go see the Barbie movie, or is that like being a
You're
scam?
not crossing the picket. It's in the past. You're not crossing the picket line. It would be like now. Like I'm in SAG-AFTRA, but I'm actually on the not retired list, but in a way, because I don't do anything like this radio show. It's not union, so it doesn't apply. And years ago, when I was full-time comic, I needed SAG-AFTRA to do like TV appearances and stuff. So I'm still in the union, but I'm on the DL or something like that, whatever. But Hen, my fiance, is a working actress. So this is,
I'm so sorry, but I hope the studios step up and give a good contract.
They do. I told her she's on strike. She's like a teamster. She's like a longshoreman. We're going on a picket line together. Where you don't want to see Hen. She'll be angry. Well, the good thing, she's in an off-Broadway play in the fall. That's not affected. So it's actually worked out great. She was cast out a few months ago on Search Rehearsal in August. So let's talk about some law stuff. So Eugene Carroll is your friend. But I want to get, this is not about Eugene, the question, because she has her second defamation lawsuit. It's about the Department of Justice. And they began by saying they're going to defend Donald Trump and when he defamed Eugene Carroll by smearing her with lies when he was in the White House. And At first they said, we're going to defend her. Now, just a few days ago, they go, nope, we're reversing course. We're not going to represent Donald Trump anymore. What's going on here? Can you share a little bit?
So I don't know any inside scoop, but following the filings, what's going on here is, just to be clear, as you noted, this was actually the first case she brought. We call that Carroll 1. Carroll 2 is the one she just won, related to the defamation from November of 2022. This goes back, as you noted, to 2019. And it was taking so long because there was all these fights around, discovery at first, sharing documents, information, depositions, all this stuff. But there was also a big fight that went through the courts about whether Donald Trump was acting as president when he allegedly defamed her in 2019. And you're right, the Bill Barr Justice Department decided to take that position. And the reason why that's important is because on the one hand, you might think, oh, that's good, because normally speaking, there's this thing called sovereign immunity where you can't let me just say it differently. If you're an employee of the federal government, you're given protection through something called the Westfall Act. Like if you do something really bad while you're at work and someone sues you, you don't have to pay out of your pocket. The government's going to stand in, defend you. And if you mess stuff up, they'll pay. Well, the thing is that you would think the Westfall Act is good for people who want to sue if they were hurt by government employees. But one way it's bad is that the Westfall Act does not cover defamation. So it would allow the way it was going to work is Bill Barr was going to defend Trump, make her case be Eugene Carroll versus United States of America, and then get the case dismissed. Because if it's the Westfall Act, then they can say, doesn't matter if he defamed you or not, he's immune, the government's immune from that. Well, that had been going on, and that was the position that they took at the Merrick Garland Justice Department. What's new here is after Donald Trump lost the case where he was found liable for sexual battery and for defamation this recent spring. Then remember how he lost the case and he went on CNN and he said, you defamed her. So Eugene Carroll's lawyers amended their complaint in that first case to add that. Now, here's what's really cool. Legal trick is that when you amend a complaint, then it's a whole new situation where now the Justice Department had another bite at the apple and the judge said, you need to tell me, are you still the defendant here or not? And they had a deadline and they just said, yeah, no. And the reason they gave is the judge said, take a look at the record from the trial. The Justice Department got to see the record from the trial and all the trial documents, and they decided that he really wasn't acting as president. He was trying to argue, well, I have to decline and say I didn't do this and say it's a lie because it has to do with me as president. And when they took a look at his defamation from 2022, when he was not president, they looked at it and said, it looks exactly like what he did before. So we think it was really insignificant. Whatever, even if he was wearing his presidential hat, it was so little of his motivation that no, we're not going to defend you. So he's losing his flipping mind now on Truth Social.
That's great. So now he has to go get his own private lawyers, I assume. No more. The irony of that Biden's DOJ is representing Trump in a civil action while the criminal wing is prosecuting him is kind of interesting, isn't it? And
well, he already had his own lawyer. See, DOJ was there and he had his own lawyers still just to keep an eye on things, which is Alina Habba, who's on this case. And she's not a very good lawyer. And he'll have to pay her. And he already lost with Joe Tacopina, his other lawyer. He already lost Carroll too. So there's not even going to be a big trial, probably. It's probably just going to be damages at this point because they have the ruling that it was defamatory already. So he's really not a happy camper.
That's good to know. I'm talking about Jen Taub. So Jen, another case involving Donald Trump is the criminal case. And his lawyers have asked for indefinite postponement.
Which criminal?
The one, right, the one in Florida.
Yep.
And there'll be more coming, I think. I think by next month, we might see Fulton County, and hopefully by September, January 6th related. But in any event, his lawyer's argument was the court now presides over a prosecution advanced by the administration of a sitting president against his chief political rival, himself a leading candidate. Therefore, a measured consideration and timeline that allows for a careful and complete review of the procedures that led to this indictment and unprecedented legal issues presented herein best serves the interests of the defendants and the public. And essentially, they want to put this off beyond the election because they know if somehow Trump wins, I don't believe he will, but if he were to win, it ends. We know it. That's the end. There's not going to be any game. So what's your reaction to them asking for this? Essentially,
okay, my reaction is if I were a criminal defense attorney, I would tell my clients to run for president and say they, the Republican ticket, and to say they that their rival is Joe Biden, because apparently that will immunize you. So here's the game you play. I'm running for president, so I can't be prosecuted. Or even in a state, like if you're being prosecuted by a state prosecutor, run for governor, because that means you're immune. And then if you win office, can't be prosecuted then. I mean, come on, Dean. I think what it really depends on here, though, is Judge Cannon going to play ball or not? What is she going to do?
What do you think about, look, what if, I want to see the trial date happen sooner, right? And whatever happens, happens. It would be a nightmare, though, if he was acquitted. I don't think he would be acquitted. But imagine he had the trial in February, was acquitted. Like hanging over him, I would rather have the conviction because then he's a convicted felon running for president. And it won't affect the MAGA base. I don't really care what they do, but it might impact other Americans like, well, he is a convicted felon. So what do you think? Do you roll the dice and push for the trial earlier?
Well, when you say push for it earlier, I thought the Department of Justice had asked for a December.
Right,
trial
December.
date.
And say this December is still what they're asking for, and the defense is later, but still December is probably unlikely. There's not big trials in December. It's hard to get a jury in December. So you're looking at January, February-ish. Or do you go, what do you, I'm just saying in your heart, like strategic. We have no impact on this.
I don't,
it doesn't matter.
for me, I would go with how good the evidence is. And I wouldn't want to delay because witnesses over time could die. They could change their mind. Anything could happen. So, I think I would look at this entirely as to what does the evidence look like? And am I ready to move forward?
That's a fair point. And that's a good point. And I'm just throwing it out there because I'm a radio host. These are things we do. Like talk about things,
this is the first time I've answered that question, but again, that's what I think I would do. But as you noted, we've got the Alvin Bragg case out of the Manhattan. He's the Manhattan DA. We're expecting a grand jury has been assembled, as you know, in Fulton County. We're expecting maybe either an indictment or not an indictment at the beginning of August. And then we have the January 6th case, which seems still, there seems to be a lot of movement we see leaking from, or at least from witnesses who've gone in. So, this guy, there's enough crime to keep prosecutors busy for quite a while. Yeah.
What do you think in Fulton County? We only know public reporting, but I've read so much where it seems like the DA might be doing something much broader than just Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump will be one of many defendants, and I could be wrong about that. But what's your sense? What's your gut telling you?
I'm remembering back to that kooky lady who was very forthcoming from the special grand jury who was saying there are going to be no plot twists. And it seemed, and based on the document, that there's lots of people. When I say lots, more than one,
Right.
less than 10. I don't know. It seems like we're going to see that. Yes.
I would think Rudy Giuliani, I would say he's a likely person to be indicted. I would really be surprised if he's not. And I wonder if other Trump lawyers are, and Republican officials in Georgia who were involved in this, some of them might be for lying to their own legislative body. And we're going to see how that plays out if that's
will.
allowed. I mean, there might be immunity for certain things, but so yesterday, FBI Director Wray testified, and so much of the media coverage is, of course, the nitpicking and the drama. Look at, it's a harsh criticism and all this stuff. They're attacking each other. And some Democrats had great things. Ted Lieu was really good. Eric Swalwell was really good. Steve Cohen was very good. Steve Cohen was excellent, the congressman from Tennessee, because he brought up the threats that were made against the FBI and even violence after Mar-a-Lago. And he got Christopher Wray to say something we didn't know about, that the threats got so great, they actually started their own unit that is dealing with protecting DOJ officials from threats. And he didn't say from MAGA threats, but we understand that's what it is. And there was a recent article in the Washington Post how federal prosecutors working on the classified documents case are getting threats against themselves and even their family online. I don't know how credible, but there are threats, and it's enough for the Washington Post to report about it. To me, that's such a bigger story. I don't know why the corporate media really touch on it maybe a little, but it's gone. That's such a big thing. It just shows more of the fact that there are some part of MAGA, their go-to is violence. And that's not normal American politics. That's much more fascist movement.
So I don't know enough. I've never worked at a major media outlet. And so I don't know what the lawyers or what the standards and practices people think. But I wonder whether the more attention you give to that, it encourages more of it. Like, I just don't know if they don't take it seriously, or if they're trying to not, draw attention to something that might make some attention seekers get more threatening.
I don't know, but at the same time, to hear the FBI has their own unit to investigate would be like, oh, I don't know if I should do that.
Watching, I didn't watch the hearing live, but I did watch last night, and Christopher Wray and I went to college at the same time.
Oh, really?
We're the same,
Did you know him?
I did not know him. He looks familiar. He rode crew with Anderson Cooper. They were in the same skull. Anderson was the coxswain. Anyhow,
Really?
yeah.
Yelling at people.
But, he looks like he's been through a lot. Like, I looked at his face yesterday and he just looked really exhausted, bewildered. I mean, not bewildered, that's the wrong, just annoyed. I loved when he said the thing, like when they accused him of being, having conspiracy against conservatives. And he said something like, that's just insane. He's always been this preppy boy, conservative man person now. And that idea, and he's in a tough position because, I think he hasn't done a great job either. I don't think he should still be there. And so, he must be miserable because everyone's mad at him.
It's true. And there were some Democrats, and when I read articles about it, asking questions about why did you delay in your prosecution of Donald Trump? Because based on the Washington Post reporting, it was more than a year before they actually made him a target of their investigation. And that's like day one stuff. That's like
he
Trump
works for Garland,
right? And it was Garland, right?
Even though he's appointed separately, the FBI reports up to the DOJ, to the AG. So it's part of it. So Ray, if Garland had pushed him, he would have done it.
Certainly, and it seems that according to Washington Post reporting, that you couldn't even mention the T word they were saying, which was Trump, and it was very much, we don't want to get. I can understand, honestly, Merrick Garland not wanting to get involved in politics. So to him, prosecuting Trump was political, but I think that was an old-fashioned way of looking at it. We never had an attempted coup and an attack on our Capitol orchestrated, or at least inspired by the president, and the coup part was all him. And to have old rules against a new world, to me, that's part of the mistake. That Garland was the wrong guy. In retrospect, we didn't know it. He was much more judge than prosecutor. He's been on the bench a long time, and he seemed to really weigh things and look at things. A real prosecutor, or at least he should have had a special counsel right away. He'd been like, look, this is going to be political.
He should have immediately appointed a special counsel. Immediately. For all things Trump, period. He should have appointed one to take over where the Mueller report left off, and to say anything that, period. He should have just done that and said, I'm having my hands not on this, and done it. Yeah. You can't just pretend things weren't the way they are. Yeah, I don't understand it. I never will.
I agree. I'm talking about Jen Taub. So Jen, Rudy Giuliani here, I got to get your reaction that the DC, the Attorney Discipline Committee has recommended that he be disbarred. And he's been disbarred at least almost indefinitely here in New York. I don't know if they're ever going to change that or not. I think he has to appeal to the court for it. Don't you, on some level, look, he may or may not be charged with crimes, but isn't this a good message for lawyers out there that if you're going to represent Donald Trump and you're going to actively lie to the public while you're representing the guy, there's a specific rule of professional ethics that controls that. If you're going to do that, you're going to get disbarred. To me, it's such an important message to be sent so we don't see what happened in 2020 happen again with lawyers, because they're going to know that it's the end of their career.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. There are other states, as you note. And, to me, anyone who thinks Rudy Giuliani is a good role model probably was disabused of that when he had the shoe polish running down his face on national television, or when he held a press conference in front of a landscaping business because he got the name wrong and thought it was a hotel. But yes, I mean, I think at the very least he should be disbarred. But he was also, as allegedly incredibly engaged in illegal activities, and hopefully he's also being investigated for that.
I think he is. I really think in Georgia he's going to be indicted, because when you read what happened there, just to open reporting, he went before the legislature and knowingly lied. That's going to be the allegation there. And he has no immunity. He's not an elected official.
Well, I think he did more. Back in Michigan, when he brought that sort of drunk lady who used to be a performer
Right.
to the hearing and was just making stuff up about the ballots. I think he was involved in a conspiracy to defraud the United States by interfering in our elections. And I'm surprised there have not been federal charges against him.
Well, he's also, everyone's suing civilly, which is a different standard. But in this case, it's a case from Georgia where the election worker and her mom were suing Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani for what they did, ultimately lying about them, defamation, leading to threats against them.
Yes.
It was an interesting piece of evidence in this defamation lawsuit. They got a text message from Boris Epstein, who was a lawyer for Trump. He's really close to Donald Trump now. I knew him when he wasn't close to Trump. He's just doing media stuff. And in it, it's very interesting. They said that he was texting and saying the president wants simple examples of election fraud. They didn't need to be proven, but something that is super easy to explain. That's his word, super easy to explain. And that, getting to the second part about
their names, I just want to say their names, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Moss.
I was looking at my notes here. I'm like, where are their names? I knew I had them here. And so I couldn't find them. I'm glad that I appreciate you saying that. But this typifies, it's what a great example of what was going on in Trump world. It doesn't have to be true, just something easy to explain, because the whole thing on the right is reaching people in their gut, right? Like they'll say, there were suitcases full of fraudulent ballots. That wasn't true. Trump kept repeating it, even though Bill Barr told him it wasn't true. But in their gut, then people, it sticks. It's sticky. Like, oh, I saw suitcases. Yep, that was ballots. Truth doesn't matter. And that's what this.
Well, he's a con artist. This is what happens when you elect a con artist to the presidency. I've been calling him that from the beginning because he was, involved in, he settled a RICO case between the time he was elected and he took office for his fake university. Con artists do what they do because words are only used to lure in the money. So you lie, and if later you get sued for fraud, maybe you get back a little money. Maybe they sue you. This is his whole thing. So it doesn't, people tell him that's not true. That's irrelevant to him. And now the same thing with E. Jean Carroll. He's defaming her again. He's just thinking someone else is going to pay that bill. He has operated this way his entire life. The dude's not going to change. And the worst part about it is the people who go along with it, half of them are the same, and the other half are just self-serving, power-seeking monsters.
And by the way, for the E. Jean Carroll case, with the judgment against him, I mean, does she have to wait to try to collect on it, or can she try to execute on assets now?
No, the way it works is because he's appealing it, he had to post, they call it posting bond, but he wasn't able to find a bond company, but he has to post the money. I guess it was $5 million plus interest in advance. And I think his lawyer put it in an escrow account. And if he loses the appeal, he's got to hand it over, which includes post-judgment interest. depending, it could be even more post-judgment interest. And then if she loses the appeal, then she would have to pay, I think, the interest. I think is how that works at federal court. But that's what's going on. So yeah, he had to pony up some money, but she doesn't see a dime yet.
And that's probably just contributions from people to his super PAC and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like Donald Trump is getting $5 million out of his own bank account and putting up. It's just remarkable how people continue to give money to him. They don't care, or they love him so much blindly. And the newest polls in the last few days show his lead over DeSantis growing. And DeSantis is not a good candidate. Now we know that. Like before, I thought he could be formidable. I'm like, boy, he's weak. But I think a lot of them on the right are going to Trump to try to help him. They feel he's under the gun. He's a victim, and they're rallying around him even more right now. So he will be their nominee, I think.
Yep. It's really unbelievable, but believable.
And last thing to touch on before we let you go, and it's on the right, they're trying to say, well, Trump might be a criminal, but look, Biden's a criminal too. We have a special informant who's going to tell you about all these payments made right to Joe Biden from people while he was vice president. Somehow as vice president, he shifted the American policy because Obama wasn't president. It was Joe Biden. But the star witness in all of this, his name is Gal Luft. We just found out he was indicted back in November. We didn't know about it. He was arrested in February. He's on the lam. He's a fugitive on the lam. And that's their best witness in all of this. I mean, what does it say about this GOP? This is their guy. This is their whistleblower.
You know, I know we jumped the shark a long time ago, but you couldn't write this. I mean, and this is the thing, you know, thank God there's a writer's strike, an actor's strike, because no one could actually, if they wrote this, they'd be fired. I mean, this is like, you know, the inanity, the stupidity of this. I just, you know, I want to say I have no comment, but my comment is, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, it's just unbelievable.
And their whole thing is on the right on Fox News this whole week. They were saying things like, you see, the minute Biden knew he was in trouble and they were going to show him to the world, like they were going to uncover him soon. They indicted him. They indicted him in November. The case was developing for a long time before November. He knew it was. So
there you go again. There you go again with reality, logic, and facts, Dean. That's not popular anymore.
Look, you can't. I have, before we wrap up, you know, I've had people say in the past, like, if you talk to Trump supporters, can't you just give them facts and change their mind? And you know what? I really try in the beginning on the radio show, they would call and I would try to, and I realized it didn't matter because then they would, if they couldn't defend it, they just changed the goalpost. It's another thing. And you realize it's not about facts. It's about defending Donald Trump at any and all cost. And you can't win those arguments. So it becomes like, I'll be playful with them or I won't take their calls or something, but you're not going to change their mind. It's never going to happen. People
have attached so much of their ego and personality to supporting him that they feel like you're trying to diminish them if you tell them he's not worth it, because what you're telling them is that they've been duped, and nobody likes to be told that they're a fool.
Well, that's true. That's why Trump is their big winner. And that's why he had to win the 2020 election, because they can't be losers either. Well, my friend Jen Taub, you're on Threads. Tell people where they can find you on Threads.
Yeah, on Threads, my name is backwards. It's Taub Jen, Taubjen.
How come? Someone else took Jen?
I think when I went to do Instagram years ago, supposedly it was taken, Jen Taub, but I don't find one there. So I don't know.
Well, I'm just simply Dean Obeidallah on Threads. All right, Jen, thank you so much. Again, happy anniversary. Thanks for being on. I look forward to chatting with you in the future.